Now these folks, it's already been said right here at this conference that these folks are really the brightest and the best, and they are more intelligent than we are. And it's only right and proper that they run everything because they only have our best interest at heart. Well, let's look back over just the past 100 years. They've given us 2 world wars, 2 depressions, one acknowledged and the one currently not. And it doesn't sound like they're operating in our best interest. Not at all. They give us the Persian Gulf War. That was Daddy Bush's war. Drew his line in the sand. Just happened to be north of the Harkin Energy holdings of his son George W., who just by sheer coincidence, I'm sure, sold off the bulk of those holdings right before the invasion of Kuwait and made himself almost a cool $1 million by selling short on that. You think Daddy might have whispered in his ear? Oh, no, wouldn't do that, would they? Of course they would. And then the whole thing ends, just as everything's closing in. Got too much to cover here. I could give you the whole story. When the American ambassador goes to Saddam Hussein, April Glaspie, and she testified to this in front of Congress but didn't go anywhere, he says, we're going to go back to our original boundaries, which means he's going to take back Kuwait, which was illegally taken and carved out of Iraq in the first place by the British years ago so they could get their hands on some of those southern Iraqi oil reserves. And he asked the American ambassador, what do y'all think about that? And her almost exact answer was, well, I've been instructed to inform you that we consider that an Arab problem and we don't really have any thoughts on that. What does that sound like? Sounds like do what you want to do. And then the minute he sends his troops into Kuwait, oh, he's the new Hitler. All right, and the Saudis put up a $12 billion war chest hidden in a secret account in London for George Bush to use to prosecute the Persian Gulf War. It's a deal, folks. It's just a deal. They're all just deals. This whole thing right now, I'll tell you what I suspect. We all know this thing about Iraq is about oil. But why do we need the oil? We got plenty of oil in the United States, and we're not getting that much out of the Middle East anyway. And besides that, we now have our troops in Afghanistan, which means we now control the Caspian Sea oil reserves. Something that's been a big bone of contention for the last 100 years, ever since the Nobel brothers went over there and started production in the Caspian Sea area. When Hitler sent his Sixth Army charging through the Ukraine, they weren't going to capture Stalingrad. They were trying to get to those Caspian Sea oil reserves, but they got stopped at Stalingrad. It's been a big bone of contention. Everybody wants to get a hold of Caspian Sea oil. Well, now we have it. And Britain now wants their share. They want the Iraqi oil. And it's really funny because we see Tony Blair standing up, and he's pushing for war with Iraq just about as hard as George Bush. And we think, oh, our wonderful British allies, boy, they're with us through thick and thin. I think once you study these secret societies and where they came from and who's really behind all this, it's the other way around. BP wants the oil, but they can't move British troops into Iraq because, quite correctly, that would be perceived as aggression. But the United States has already fought a war with Iraq, so we can go in and take it for them. And y'all just hide and watch. If we have a war and we have a regime change and we gain control over Iraq, you hide and watch if British Petroleum doesn't get a big chunk of that. It's all about oil. We all know that. And the problem is we're all so fat and sassy. Well, yeah, but I got to have gas for my car, man. I got to drive down to the 7-Eleven and get a pack of cigarettes, I mean, yeah, it's only a block away, but who wants to walk a block, We are just really we just have no idea of the misery in most of the world because we all have it so well. I mean, So it's all about oil, and my big complaint there is we don't need the damn oil, okay? We don't need to be on a petroleum energy basis anyway. There's so much other things we could be doing. Do you realize that with just some tweaking of the intake jets in your carburetor, you could be running your car on hydrogen? And hydrogen does not cause any pollution. And hydrogen is the most plentiful substance on the planet. Think about it. This is a water planet. H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. We could be burning hydrogen. We don't even need the damn oil. But no, we're going to go over there and kill a whole bunch of people, and probably our own troops. And look what's happening with the Gulf veterans right now. They're all coming down with all kinds of sicknesses, probably because of the contaminated vaccines they got. Also, the depleted uranium shells that were lying everywhere, giving them a radiation dose that destroys their immunization system, not to mention the oily smoke and petrochemicals hanging in the air. And do you think that a new war with Iraq's going to be any better? Never mind the massive casualties that Iraq's going to suffer. Wait till our guys come back in another 20 years and they'll be raising hell about their health problems. And what's the government going to do about it? I'll tell you right now, not a damn thing. Let me tell you something. When I was in the Army, this just really gets my blood to boiling when I think about this. When I was in the Army back during Vietnam, we'd get C rations, and in the C rations, along with the powdered milk and this, that, and the other thing, was a little packet of cigarettes. Get 5 little cigarettes. We always thought that was cool, free cigarettes. And those who didn't smoke would swap them around to those who did, and it was almost a medium of exchange. And that practice goes way on back even through World War II. Where do you think all those guys in World War II got the smoking habits? Because the Army gave them free cigarettes. And now under the Clinton administration, when some of these guys who put their life on the line to fight for freedom and democracy in World War II, and they start coming down with emphysema and lung cancer, and they go to the VA under the Clinton administration, they ruled that that was a self-inflicted disease and that they would not treat the veterans. That's shameful, folks. That's shameful. You give your soldiers cigarettes all through their career and then you won't treat them when they get a health-related problem? Unconscionable. But that's what happens when you let these secret society creeps run your country.